You voted to bleed it dry, and now you're screaming that it's bleeding. Are you forgetting your own voting record? Are we supposed to pretend that your hands aren't all over this disaster? In a moment that caught Capitol Hill off guard and electrified social media, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett unloaded on Senator Lindsey Graham with the precision of a political scalpel, slicing through his attempt to shift the blame for the latest USAID failure onto Democrats. Jasmine Crockett called out hypocrisy, detailed the broken legacy of Republican foreign aid decisions, and made it abundantly clear: clean up your own mess. The chamber fell silent, the nation leaned in, and what unfolded next was a political reckoning that could not be ignored. Senator Lindsey Graham, ever the seasoned political actor, stood before the press with furrowed brows and a carefully rehearsed tone of indignation. With the latest revelations about inefficiencies and failures in the United States Agency for International Development, commonly known as USAID, he found a convenient scapegoat: the Democrats. According to Graham, liberal spending policies and what he dubbed progressive mismanagement had eroded the agency's effectiveness, putting American interests and international stability at risk. But what he offered was not a constructive critique. It was a blame game, a partisan smokescreen meant to deflect from a long, documented history of neglect and undercutting that took root under Republican-led Congresses and administrations. And in that moment, what Lindsey Graham didn't anticipate was that Jasmine Crockett would respond with force, focus, and fury. Jasmine Crockett rose not with theatrics but with cold, unshakable facts. "Senator," she began, "are you forgetting your own voting record? Are we supposed to pretend that your hands aren't all over this disaster?" Her voice rang out not with aggression, but with conviction. She laid out, step by step, the structural decay that USAID had suffered over the past decade, much of which occurred under Republican oversight. She highlighted how, during the Trump administration, experienced leadership within the agency was replaced by political appointees lacking field expertise, how funding for emergency relief and development programs had been slashed in the name of America First policies, and how internal whistleblowers were silenced when they tried to raise the alarm. Crockett made it clear, Lindsey Graham's party didn't just inherit a broken system, they broke it. The tension in the room was immediate. Even seasoned reporters began to glance between each other, surprised by the directness of Crockett's challenge. But this was no grandstanding act. She brought receipts, specific line items in past federal budgets, quotes from bipartisan inspectors general, data from USAID's own internal reviews, and interviews with disillusioned aid workers who had seen morale collapse under pressure from politically motivated restructuring. You stripped oversight, gutted transparency, and still found ways to pat yourselves on the back for fiscal responsibility, Crockett said, pointing straight toward Graham. Now the agency's in crisis, and suddenly you're pretending it's someone else's fault? Shame on you. The senator, unaccustomed to such targeted pushback from someone across the aisle or especially from a black woman unafraid to confront him on live television, tried to interject, but Crockett raised her voice just enough to quiet the noise. You don't get to cut the lifeline and then blame us when the patient dies. That's not politics. That's cowardice. She snapped. Her words were not just pointed, they were devastating in their clarity. She wasn't speaking only to Lindsey Graham. She was speaking to the broader political culture that rewards distortion over dialogue, projection over truth, and evasion over accountability. What made Crockett's response so powerful was not just her knowledge, it was her ability to link policy failures to human consequences. She told the story of a USAID team in Haiti that had to suspend crucial infrastructure repair operations due to delayed budget approvals driven by Republican-led shutdown threats. She spoke of COVID-era bottlenecks in vaccine distribution made worse by disorganized communications infrastructure, an area where cuts were initiated during years when Graham himself chaired key subcommittees. Don't you dare act surprised by the agency's paralysis, she said. You engineered it, brick by brick, with every vote you took to treat diplomacy like an afterthought. And still, Crockett didn't rely on emotion alone. She referenced the 2017 USAID transformation plan proposed under Trump's appointees, which critics blasted for its vague restructuring and centralization of authority that reduced responsiveness in the field. She read direct quotes from experts who warned that weakening regional autonomy would hobble USAID's ability to adapt in crises. And she made it clear that while Democrats have certainly not been perfect, they've consistently fought to reverse course by proposing increases in aid transparency, reforms in hiring practices, and legislation to rebuild oversight capacity. You block the solutions and then cry about the symptoms, she said. That's not leadership, that's sabotage. There was no mistaking the reaction in the chamber. Crockett had seized control of the narrative. Her voice, amplified by facts and driven by purpose, became the center of gravity. Lindsey Graham, whose original goal had been to manufacture outrage and assign blame, was now the one on defense, deflecting, mumbling half answers, and trying to change the subject, but Crockett would not allow it. You want to talk about waste? Let's talk about the billions redirected under your watch to for-profit contractors with no accountability. Let's talk about how you cheered while USAID lost its mission clarity because it was being used to reward political donors. As she continued, Crockett broadened the scope of her takedown, exposing a pattern of deflection in conservative politics. It's always the same playbook, she said. Undermine the government's ability to work, then campaign on the idea that government doesn't work. It's cynical, it's calculated, and it's killing the credibility of American leadership worldwide. Her voice cracked not with anger, but with the weight of responsibility. It was a rare moment in political theater where authenticity triumphed over spectacle, and it was clear that her words resonated beyond the walls of the hearing room. In a particularly poignant moment, Crockett looked directly into the cameras and addressed the American public. I know people are tired, she said, tired of politicians who dodge accountability, tired of being lied to about where their tax dollars go, tired of hearing that aid programs are broken without hearing the truth about who broke them. She paused, not for dramatic effect, but to let the gravity of her words settle. We need honesty, not political theater. We need leaders who own their actions, not ones who run from their shadows. After her speech, pundits from across the spectrum began weighing in. Even some conservative analysts grudgingly admitted that Crockett had delivered a devastating rebuttal. Liberal commentators praised her courage and clarity, hailing her as one of the few voices in Congress willing to confront hypocrisy with both passion and precision. Social media erupted with support, with hashtags like #CleanUpYourOwnMess and #Crockett vs Graham trending nationwide. Memes, highlight clips, and detailed breakdowns of her speech flooded TikTok and Twitter. She wasn't just winning an argument, she was reshaping the debate. But Crockett wasn't celebrating. In a follow-up interview, she said the moment wasn't about scoring points. It was about defending the truth. We have to be better, she said. We owe it to the people who depend on USAID, and we owe it to ourselves to demand honesty from those in power. She acknowledged the uphill battle of restoring faith in America's foreign aid institutions but emphasized that it starts with accountability, real accountability, not scapegoating or spin. In the weeks following the confrontation, legislative efforts to audit USAID's management history gained renewed traction. Crockett proposed a bipartisan oversight commission to evaluate not only current deficiencies but also past decisions that contributed to systemic breakdowns. This isn't about partisan blame, she said in a floor speech. It's about understanding how we got here, so we never let it happen again. Her insistence on moving from confrontation to reform won praise even from some moderate Republicans who had grown weary of performative politics. And Lindsey Graham? He faded into the background, declining interviews on the topic and issuing a vague statement through his office about looking forward to bipartisan solutions. But the damage was done, not to his political standing alone, but to the broader effort to keep spinning narratives without consequence. Crockett's takedown had disrupted the status quo. It had reminded the nation that truth-telling still has a place in Washington, and it had made it much harder for others to peddle empty outrage without facing the fire of accountability. In an age where deflection often dominates the discourse, Jasmine Crockett's stand was a reminder that clarity still matters, that substance can outshine spin, that the people deserve leaders who don't just talk loud, but speak truth. When she said, "Clean up your own mess," it wasn't just a rebuke, it was a demand for honesty, for integrity, and for the kind of leadership that meets crises with solutions, not excuses. If you believe in holding politicians accountable, in standing up for truth over theatrics, and in amplifying voices like Jasmine Crockett's that speak for the people and not for party lines, make sure to like this video, share it with others who care, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more fearless political coverage.